Command & Conquer is a 1995 RTS developed by the legendary Westwood Studios and ported to the PS1 and the N64. We will be focusing on the N64 version. Command & Conquer is part of a lineage of RTS games that traces its roots all the way back to the start of the genre. If you want the full details on that, check out the link in the description by No Strings, because that guy is just a much better storyteller than me. Look, Command & Conquer is a start. It's the beginning to an epic franchise that would change gaming forever. So how does it play today? Does it still hold up, or not?
The story of Command & Conquer, or as I'll be referring to it from now on, C&C, is a story that is massive, at times mind-warping, galaxy-spanning, and it doesn't get fully wrapped up until several games later. So it is no surprise that the story here, while satisfying, is lacking a solid conclusion. My understanding is that this game was always intended to be the first of a series, and it shows narratively. The story is set in the near future, where Tiberium is blessing the landscape, as the Brotherhood of Nod puts it. Nod uses Tiberium for fuel and currency, and probably some freaky stuff, but we'll leave that alone. They are opposed by the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, basically the UN Blue Hats versus global terrorists. One great thing about C&C is how unapologetically evil Nod gets to be. Some of the mission objectives are just, hey, this local African leader is causing problems, go kill him. Nod relies on propaganda, targeting civilians, and intimidation. It's gloriously unhinged. But the story is a bit too big for its britches. Let me explain. There's a lot going on here. You just have to read between the lines. In-game storytelling is non-existent, and the iconic live-action cutscenes don't appear until later entries in the series, so some of the story relies on context clues. The tale being told is actually clever and surprisingly character-driven for a game whose graphics could be replicated one-to-one by an Etch-a-Sketch.
Anyone who's played an RTS before will be right at home with the gameplay here. You move units around the field, build structures that allow you to build new units, and you harvest Tiberium to earn credits that pay for it all. There are little quirks, however, little things that are just off. For instance, being an N64 title, your units feel especially brain dead, such as how units on guard duty perform poorly. Very poorly. You can only load units into carriers one at a time because everyone rushing in at once would just be rude. You know, nonsensical little things like that, which get ironed out in the sequels. But C&C 1 is retro gaming at its finest. It's a good depiction of what the series was, without being fully realized. It sort of looks and plays like other entries in the series, but thankfully it feels refreshingly dated, and that's a good thing. It means that the C&C series grew and adapted over time in a meaningful way. In my Dune 2000 review, link in the description, please check it out, I lamented just how playable Dune 2000 was. But Command & Conquer 1 is less so. It's like a concept come to life, a first pass, a rough draft, and a playable, enjoyable one at that. In terms of difficulty, it's tough, but unfair. Wait, that's not how that saying goes. Well anyway, this game will stomp on your pride and give you a swift kick in the nuts. Kane does not take any shit. And there's not much of a difference in challenge between the Nod and GDI campaigns. Each are infuriatingly hard, but Nod's is harder because of GDI's wildly unbalanced air power.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Ah, who doesn't love that? Me, I don't love that. But there is a rhythm to the combat, and soon all your beatings will act like a wise sensei, teaching you to get better, one humiliating defeat at a time.
That's a broad overview, but now let's get negative. The graphics are basic. This is not a surprise, but can you tell which of these bazooka troops is actually a flamethrower unit? It's this guy. Psych, it's a bazooka too. Or is it? That's the point. When you get destroyed by grenades because you can't distinguish the grenadiers from the infantrymen, that's when the graphics are actively killing you, and that's what the ion cannon is for. Okay, here is a stealth tank. Is it in stealth mode or combat mode? Any idea? Well, only she knows, and she's not telling. She's secretive like that. Remember how I said units only load into vehicles one at a time? Well, your harvesters are also suffering from a similar mental illness. So if a harvester is headed to a nearby refinery, the other harvester will run into enemy lines and certain death to get to a different refinery because his buddy called dibs. Well, at least the harvester drivers are polite. Completely freaking crazy,
but polite. There are other fun little hiccups. For instance, your commando can blow up buildings, but sometimes he doesn't get far enough away, so he gets friendly fired by his own pyromania. Yeah, some tough guys don't look at the explosions they caused, but real tough guys just jump right in that explosion. But suicidal commandos aside, it's also really great when GDI uses their unique faction ability to bomb your small raiding party during the campaign, a move that cannot be prevented or countered in any way, because that's what we call balance, kids. Also, Nod is supposed to be a swarm faction, but they don't play that way since their infantry costs just as much, if not more, than GDI's. Okay, so what did I like about this game? How's about damn near everything else? CNC is amazing, and all of those thinly veiled criticisms I lobbed against it was a vain and slightly pathetic attempt to come across as objective. Westwood Studios introduced me to the genre, and I've been in love with it ever since. The only problem is that I game on consoles, which don't get much love from the genre, or so it seems. But Command & Conquer was there on the consoles from the very beginning and deserves to be applauded for that, for showing up for all us little guys who can't afford an Alienware. CNC is a classic, an exciting, tactical, funny classic that spawned many sequels. CNC is an important chapter in the history of gaming, and it takes its place in the video game pantheon. I remember back in the Xbox 360 era, there were games like Universe at War and Halo Wars touting a revolutionary game wheel and other features that would finally allow the RTS games to be appreciated on the consoles. I guess everyone just forgot that CNC was ported over to the N64 back in 1995. RTS has been on the consoles since the beginning of the genre's most iconic series. Command & Conquer on the N64 has no live-action cutscenes. The units act sort of funny, hell they look funny, but the gameplay is magical. Not for its time, but for today, because Command & Conquer isn't a game for the history books. It's a game that can, and in my opinion, should still be enjoyed. And that's what you call a living legend.
Run red with the blood of GDI. I've swallowed a tonsil.